Hello and welcome back. Today, we are getting right into the Restoration Manifesto from the Afrika Mayibuye movement. It's a document that really lays out their diagnosis of South Africa's biggest challenges and puts forward a pretty bold and, you'll see, often radical vision for the future.
So here's what we're going to break down. We'll start with their plan for the nation's debt, which is a huge one. Then we'll walk through infrastructure, unemployment, and education. We're also going to look at their vision for the government itself, including, interestingly, the role of AI, before we wrap it all up with the movement's absolute top priorities. All right, first up, let's talk money. The manifesto dives headfirst into what it calls a crippling national debt crisis. And they make it clear, this isn't just some abstract number. It's a massive burden that, in their view, directly impacts everyone's daily life. And this slide, while it puts the scale of the problem in stark terms, we're talking about a projected government debt of 6 trillion rand by 2025. But here's the real kicker. The manifesto argues that just the annual payments on that debt, over 426 billion rand, are pulling critical funds away from things like healthcare and education. So what's their big solution? The manifesto calls for something it labels revolutionary debt repudiation. In simple terms, that means refusing to pay back certain debts. The goal here, as they state it, is to achieve what they call fiscal sovereignty, basically to free the country from outside creditors and redirect those huge debt payments towards people-centered growth. Okay, so moving on from debt, the manifesto directly links that financial pressure to the decay of public services. This brings us right to our second major topic, the state of the country's infrastructure, which the document paints a picture of being in a really deep crisis. And this quote really says it all, doesn't it? It doesn't pull any punches. It describes a widespread breakdown of the most basic services. We're talking trash pickup, fixing roads, which it claims is leading to chaos and despair right at the local level. And when it comes to water specifically, the manifesto lays out some pretty alarming figures. It says that 56%, more than half, of water treatment plants are in poor or even critical condition. And it warns that the country is getting dangerously close to physical water scarcity. This isn't just some inconvenience. It's a crisis of a fundamental human need. So, in response, the manifesto gets very specific with its plan for renewal. It calls for massive investment in the big three, roads, water, and electricity, and makes a commitment to develop and maintain these things everywhere, not just in a few places. The plan even gets down to the nitty-gritty, calling for the total eradication of bucket toilets and pit latrines, and setting a pretty wild goal to repair over 25 million potholes. Next up, let's tackle one of the most stubborn challenges mentioned in the document, unemployment. The manifesto doesn't just want to lower it, it puts forward a vision for achieving full employment. And to show you why they're thinking so big, the document points to this number, an expanded unemployment rate of 42.9%. That, it says, affects over 12 million people. When a number is that high, the manifesto argues it's a national crisis that demands a complete economic rethink. So their strategy for jobs is built on these 3 pillars. First, agriculture, reforming it to secure the food supply. Second, industrialization. And this is key, shifting the focus to processing raw materials in the country instead of just shipping them out. And third, localization, which is all about boosting made-in-South Africa products to rely less on imports. Okay, let's pivot to another huge part of their platform, education. The manifesto is, to put it lightly, very critical of the current system and proposes a complete and total overhaul. At the very heart of their vision is this idea, decolonized free education. What does that mean? Well, according to the manifesto, it's 2 big things. First, a completely new curriculum that centers indigenous knowledge and African history to undo what it calls colonial legacies. And second, making all education, from preschool all the way through a PhD, completely free. And the specific reforms are just as ambitious. It's not just about making education free. The plan calls for putting vocational and skills training into every single high school. The goal, they state, is very clear. No student should leave high school without a tangible, practical skill. And nobody should be kept out of university just because they can't afford it or because of their academic background. All right, now, we're going to look at the manifesto's vision for the state itself. And this covers the whole gamut, from fighting corruption and crime all the way to embracing artificial intelligence. This slide really just lays out the contrast, doesn't it? On one side, you have the manifesto's description of the current government: dysfunctional, corrupt, and unable to stop crime. It even cites a figure of 75 murders a day. On the other side is their vision: a capable, developmental state that's independent, responsive, and uses community-based approaches to policing. And here's something that's really forward-looking: the focus on technology. The manifesto explicitly calls for adopting advanced systems, and it actually mentions artificial intelligence by name to make government run more efficiently and drive development. So it's not just about fixing today's problems, it's about using tomorrow's tools. So, after all these detailed plans, what's really driving the movement? What are the core beliefs? Well, let's wrap up by looking at their 5 foundational goals.
These 5 objectives are really the bedrock of the entire manifesto. It's about achieving total political and economic freedom, right alongside cultural freedom, through decolonization. And the way to get there, they say, is by building that capable developmental state we just talked about, all while operating as a caring and responsive movement.
And this last quote really drives that final point home. The manifesto defines the movement's identity as one that sees people as human beings, not just as voters. It emphasizes this incredible urgency to solve problems now and not tomorrow, positioning itself as a movement all about immediate, real-world action.
So there's no doubt the Restoration Manifesto is a detailed and, frankly, a radical blueprint for change. It pinpoints some deep, deep problems and proposes equally profound solutions. And that leaves us with a big question to think about. For any plan this ambitious, what does it actually take to build the bridge from a plan on paper to a totally new reality on the ground?